back for Arfield. 1-0 Burnley. Scott Arfield. He's been threatening that recently. And all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end.
Burnley win the next ball. Here's Rory now. On the outside. Decent.
Barnes! He got it! Ashley Barnes with it! What a cross from Rory. And there was Ashley Barnes. And Burnley leading the derby.
Obviously quickly finds Benson in space at the byline. Can Burnley get a goal here? Back for Brownell. Saved by the keeper.
Burnley won it to the end. That is magnificent. They deserve that.
On it by Fulback. Off for a hat-trick.
He's got it. Hat-trick for Nathan Teller. Oh, he's on fire at the minute. 3-0 Burnley. It's Nathan Teller's day.
And Burnley are 3 up here. Fantastic derby. Here's Benson. Can he go on the outside? Comes inside. Have a shot.
Oh, what a goal. Manuel Benson once more. That is top class. Burnley have done it. Fantastic. Clarets deserve the championship title. They've been the best side throughout the campaign. Burnley have won the second tier. What a fantastic achievement. The players have been magnificent.
Yes, hello everyone and welcome along to the latest instalment of the Turfcast podcast. Full-time show with me, Joe Redmond, after the Clarets go down to South Wales and come back with all 3 points in what was a massive game for Burnley. I know I say it pretty much every game now because every game is massive, but it was absolutely huge for Burnley to get 3 points yesterday. I know some people were saying, oh, it's only Swansea, that they've not been great this season. And to be fair, they did look poor yesterday. But you've got to get the job done, and there's been that many 0-0s and 1-1s and things like that you always have in the back of your head that it could be another draw. This, and with Leeds dropping points earlier in the day as well, absolutely massive statement for Burnley to go there and not only win but win comfortably. I don't think 2-0 tells the story of how comfortable that win actually was. We probably didn't put them to the sword as much as we would have liked, but that's my only nitpicking thing, and I'm being super, super critical there when I say that. But yeah, great day down in South Wales for the travelling Clarets. Unfortunately, I was at work, but I still managed to watch the match. That's my first disclaimer on there before somebody says, you weren't even there. I know I wasn't. Unfortunately, I can't get to every single one, but I do go to the majority of them. But as you can see, I am joined by Garrett and Andrew are here to discuss yesterday's 3 points. How are we doing, lads?
I'm good. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for asking, mate. Thanks for asking. Keep your comments coming in. Claret Blue 1882 says, "Good morning, Clarets. Up the owls, up the owls indeed." Kat Jebson, not seen that name for a while, says, "Morning, Clarets. Chuffed we brought the EFL clean sheet record." Yeah, completely agree, Kat. I don't think enough's being said. I know there's been a lot, to be fair, made about it recently, but when we brought the record yesterday, there wasn't that much about it, which I felt a bit strange. And another thing that I feel is a bit weird, we're 25 games unbeaten now, and even I forgot. Like, we went 25 games unbeaten yesterday, and I was just looking at the 3 points, and I'm looking at that angle, and I was thinking, brilliant, that Leeds drop points and blah, 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 blah. Not enough is being said about 25 games unbeaten. Can you remember when we went 23 undefeated under Sean Dyche, and it was everywhere? We were all buzzing with it. I know we were singing songs about it and stuff yesterday, but I just feel like it's not being made as much as we'd like. Oliver Briggs says, "Another morning full-time show. Fantastic. Good morning, Clarets." Yes, mate. Unfortunately, I have work again today. It's been a tough weekend. So, yeah, I'm having to do one in the morning because I can't do one later this evening. I do like the morning ones, to be honest with you, Oliver. I think I prefer the morning ones. However, the numbers just aren't as good when we do them in the morning. So that's the only reason why we do them in the evening, to be honest with you. But good to have you with us. Lee Guest says, "Hi from Australia." Hi, mate. All the way around the world, International Clarets, International Turfcast. John Robertson says, "Hello, fellow Sunday Owls." Hi ho, Sheffield Wednesday and all that, John. Reece James says, "Morning." Lee Guest says, "If we hadn't had the Vincent Kompany season, we would be going mad about how we are playing this season." I do agree with that, but I wouldn't say that season spoiled us. I think that's harsh to say it. But I think that when you're that good last time you're in the league, there's always going to be comparisons. Daniel Ormerod says, "Morning, boys." Who says, "Clarets Blue 1882. Kat says, "Long time listener, first time commenter. I love Turfcast." Nice one, Kat. Love that. I always see interacting on Twitter, or did back in the day. I don't know if you've one of the people that come off it, because I don't see as many names on there these days. John goes on to say, worth noting our defence at present is the defence that played away at Sunderland. That's mad, that. I didn't know that. Good stat. Promotion is the goal, says Clark, 1882. No point shouting about the clean sheet record if we don't get promoted. I do agree with that, to be fair, mate. But now we are in a position where we can go up, and, we've just broken the record. I think we should be shouting about it, personally. Adrian Brown says, always great to catch a live show. Nice one, mate. Glad to have you with us. And Simon Harbour says, good morning, boys. Loving the top, Joe. Thank you, mate. This is my running top. But as you can see by my dad bod, I don't run that much. So it's just been on the radiator for about 2 weeks. So I'll put it on for the show today. But yeah, thank you everybody for commenting. Keep your comments coming in. Obviously, we do like the show to be interactive. That's why we're the only Burnley podcast that does it live. We want it to be interactive. We want you to have your say and get involved. So please keep your comments coming in. But Gary, I'll come to you first, please, mate. Obviously, we always start the show with thoughts on the game yesterday, please.
Yeah, a professional win, which you've mentioned before on one of your other videos, but I thought a comfortable 2-0 win. After 2-0 without sounding big-headed, the game's pretty much over. I can't imagine any team had scored two, maybe Leeds, but as you well know, they struggled scoring against us. So professional win, and a massive win for putting pressure on our rivals. And then also, which I don't think spoken enough of, a win before an international break is extremely important. Players go off to the national teams, go away or whatever. But then when you're coming back and you've won and you put pressure on your rivals, that's massive, I think. So.
Yeah, completely agree. I did mention that actually in the full-time show, mate, how massive it is, because Leeds have obviously dropped points, and that's now 2 games in the last 3 games for them where they've either lost or drawn, so they've dropped points in 2 of them. So they'll be a little bit, nervous. So yeah, I think they're going into it nervous. Sheffield United, if they win today, that'll be massive for them, to be fair. But I fully expect them to drop points. I'm hoping Sheffield Wednesday do us a real favour, and I think they can. So they'll be going into it, into the international break. If they lose that, looking over the shoulders and stuff, whereas we'll be, full of confidence, like you said, going into it, buoyed, confident. It'll be a good atmosphere down at Gawthorpe. So yeah, I agree with that. I do think it's massive to get the win before the international break. But at the same time, I feel like the international break, in a way, has come at the wrong time for us, because we're gathering a bit of momentum now, and all of a sudden it's stopped. Now, obviously, understand that, players are going to go away, and, they're going to have a rest, and, Humphries closer to being back, for example, after a couple of weeks, and some of the other lads as well, like Ramsey and stuff like that. But yeah, I do completely agree with that, mate. And I'm glad you brought it up. Andrew, we'll come to you next, please, mate. Your thoughts on the game. Now, disclaimer: Andrew's internet wasn't great when we were lining up, if you will, before the stream. So fingers crossed it's better, and fingers crossed the hamsters have woken up. Andrew, thoughts on the game, please, mate.
Yeah, I think the hamsters were a little bit rough this morning.
It looking good now, mate. You answered me nice and quick then. I love that.
I started that about 10 minutes ago. Yeah, like you both say, professional performance. I thought, like I say, I'd like us to put teams to the sword a little bit more, and really go for it, and 3 or 4-0 wins. But you can't win every game like that, and to go to Swansea and win 2-0, it's another good performance. We've played really well. We've gone and got the job done. Another clean sheet, 25 undefeated. What more can you say about it? It just, I thought we played really well. We started off the game really well, and then, like you say, just professional for the rest of it, just to see it out.
Yeah, completely agree. Professional is the word I used on my fan reaction. Professional is the word Gary just used, and professional is the word that Andrew just used. And Scott Parker also used it. And I'm not saying we're all copying him, but I definitely used the word professional before that Burnley interview went out. But it's a perfect way to describe it, isn't it? Right? We go 2-0 up nice and early, see the game out. That's literally the perfect way. John Robertson says, running, yes. How is the marathon training going? Yeah, mate. Yeah, we'll move on. Mike Trezor, man of the match at Maloko. No, who's he? He's non-existent. Oliver Briggs says, easy 2-0 win. Didn't look threatened, especially after that Korean lad got subbed. He was class. Lee Guest says, we scored the same amount of goals as Sheffield United as of yesterday. Yes, good point that, mate. I actually remember being 2 goals behind them, and obviously we scored 2 yesterday. So that would make complete sense. I'll just quickly double check that. Burnley, goals scored 52. Sheffield United, goals scored 52. Yeah, so boring Burnley, boring Sheffield United. Clarets Blue 1882 says, boring Burnley. Cooled off the game in 20 minutes. Joe, you're right, though. We need to put teams to the sword and send a statement to the league that we ain't messing about with our promotion push. I agree with that, but I also agree with the fact with what Andrew just said. You can't win them all like that. And at least it was comfortable, not like that Cardiff game where, we were all the nervous ones and we could have not lost that, but we could have drawn it in the end. Liam Trousdale, apologies if I butchered that, mate. Joe the Butcher is back. Week away in Wales with the missus, topped off with 3 points at Swansea. Get in there. That sounds fantastic, mate, to be fair. Claret Blue 1882 says, get them hamsters on Red Bull. Other energy drinks are available. Yes, if there are any energy drink companies that would like to sponsor Turfcast, we're happy to get, the hamsters on said energy drink. Daniel Ormerod says, just felt we could have closed in on Leeds United goal difference if we really went for it. I get that, mate, but I think the most important thing is winning games now. I agree. Their goal difference is only 10 better than ours. I thought it'd be more than that, to be fair. So, yeah, a couple of them draws that could have been turned into wins, I think, is my main gripe, because we would be top. If 3 of them 0-0s, for example, were turned into 1-0 wins, we're top and we're top comfortable. John Robertson says, Anthony getting better and better with each game. I actually think he'd do very well if it means when we get promoted, looking clinical, and his goal involvement's growing nicely. Now, there's 3 players, individuals I've singled out to talk about yesterday. And Anthony, because of your comment, John, we'll start with Anthony. Andrew, I'll come to you first, please, mate. Your thoughts on Anthony's performance yesterday, and not just yesterday, like his general performance so far, because all 3 of these players I want to talk about today have all been scapegoated at some point. Anthony is one of them. A lot of people think that or thought earlier in the season, I don't think anyone thinks it now, to be fair, that he should be getting dropped for the likes of Coley Orshaw and Benson. But I think Andrew is probably our main threat at the minute. I mean, Edwards aside, to be fair, completely forgot about him then, just very briefly. But Anthony's been absolutely superb, hasn't he, this season?
Yeah, I think he goes not necessarily under the radar, but when he has a poor game, it sort of stands out. Whereas when he's, you're getting a 7, 8 out of 10 from him.
Yeah.
Again, that sort of goes under the radar because he's not done anything to mess up. And I think he's like a really underrated player for us. And yesterday sort of shows it. He's got a goal. He had that chance where he's killed it past top post. He
loves doing that, doesn't he?
Yeah, and it was a good move for him to actually get the chance to get there. So. Yeah, I really like Anthony. I think he goes under the radar a lot, and he's been unfairly scapegoated at times this season. Not saying he's perfect every game because none of the players are perfect every single game, but I think because he does sometimes make mistakes, or you want him to get to the byline and pull the ball back across, and he doesn't always want to do that. He wants to try his tricky little feet and try and get in the box. He can be a frustrating player, but like John says there, he's getting better. His goal involvements are growing. I think he will do well in the Premier League as well. And as well, you look at the wingers, this is another thing I think. You look at the players that he's replacing, and obviously Benson, we all love because he's a cult hero and curling it into the top corner. Coley Orshaw, we all know that he's got the raw, talent and the pace. It's the players that he's keeping out the side as well that I think maybe he gets a little bit scapegoated for because of what they've done for us in the past or who they are. But I honestly think he's getting better, and I do think he goes under the radar a lot.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Just quickly to bring a stat in for you. In terms of chances created in the Championship, Finn Azaz is top with 76 chances created for Middlesbrough. Then you got Georgia, whose name I'm never going to try and pronounce, at Watford with 70. Josh Tyman at Swansea with 68. Jack Rodina at Coventry with 64. And then just behind him is Burnley's highest chance creator, Jadon Anthony. So I think the proof's in the pudding, isn't it, Gary, that he's doing very, very well, I think, this season. And I think yesterday was probably one of his better performances. And I know he didn't get an assist for the first goal, But that first goal comes from him pressing, and that's another thing that it brings as well, that energy, that press. Swansea made that mistake because Jaden Anthony's there, and obviously I think it were Ian Fleming that got the assist in the end, and obviously then Jaden did go on to get the second, to be fair. But yeah, he's been fantastic this season, I think, as Anthony for me, and sometimes unfairly scapegoated, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's had a new lease of life since he started playing on the left, because he used to play on the right, didn't he, just to make way for Koleosho, but now he's on the left. He's a completely different player, I think. And then on his pressing game, I looked at the stats yesterday. He had 15 recoveries, which is a lot for a winger. So he's a proper Scott Parker player where he's a winger, but he's not just a winger, he defends. So that he's probably contributing towards that clean sheet. In terms of his scapegoat, my only frustration with him is I just wish he'd run at players sometimes, but maybe that's not his game, because there are often times where I just think, go on, skin him, run at him, do something, win a penalty or something like that. And he does do dribbling and that kind of stuff, but he doesn't actually run at a player. You know, if you think of Koleosho, and I know he's not the best player going, but if you compare him to Anthony and how they dribble at players, Koleosho's probably more threatening if you're looking to win penalty, you know, that kind of stuff, beat a player. But Anthony's been quality, to be fair. Like I said, since he's been on that left-hand side, he's a completely different player for me.
Yeah, so to be fair, I guess that's just a style choice, though, isn't it? Like, it depends on what you want your players to do. If you want your players to run at the defenders, then Koleosho's your man, even though the end product might not be great. But whereas Anthony, he'll wait for the overlap, or he'll try and come inside like he did with that chance yesterday that he put over the bar. But yeah, Chris Wilson says there, Anthony's, I know I've just mentioned this already, but there's another stat that I want to branch into with this comment. Says Anthony's created 63 chances for Burnley this season. The next closest for us is Browner with 39. Just shows how reliant we are on him. And another one that I've just found as well is, to be fair, in this table, he's quite way down in it. He's created 9 big chances this season for us, but it's the highest for Burnley. He's 17th in the division with that. And yes, people can not rate him, or people can say, like yourself, Gary, obviously, you know, you'd rather him run at players, but you can't really argue with some of the stats at the minute.
Yeah. Nope. And like I said, his defensive output probably outweighs that. The reason Benson probably don't play is because he's too weak and he don't defend. Koleosho probably don't play because, again, he's too weak and he don't defend. So if you want in a Scott Parker winger, which obviously is a manager, you want a player who can defend, contribute, and like showed yesterday with that first goal, his endeavour basically got us a first goal because he tackled, then he tackled again, then he tackled again, then give it to Ian Fleming, and then we scored off it. So that's what they want. So that's fair enough.
And that was the overlap that I mentioned as well. Ian Fleming obviously just ran past Anthony, and Anthony laid it off, and he put the ball into the box. Good to see Chris Wilson is in the chat, by the way. We did invite him to the show today, but he's a bit busy, but obviously not too busy to be on YouTube watching us. But thanks for commenting, Chris. Appreciate that, man. Stephen L says, morning, boys. Can't keep up with the show's different kickoff times. It's like watching Sky. Yes, apologies, mate. I did say at the top of the show, but I'm working later. So unfortunately, I had to change it a little bit. But if you can't keep up, just follow us on Facebook or Twitter. I'll always put it out on there at the different times, well in advance. Just set notifications on for our tweets. And you'll never miss a time, mate. But yeah, thank you for being here, mate. Obviously, we've all been waxing lyrical about how good Anthony is, but there are still some people in the chat that are saying they don't rate him, which is fair enough. People allow that opinion. Lee Greenwood says, I don't rate Anthony. Sorry, I just don't see what others do. I know this is an unpopular opinion. Obviously, I'll come back to you, that Lee. I know you wrote this before. We just mentioned all the stats, but I'll come back to you on that, Lee. The stats speak for themselves, and also sometimes it might be a little bit frustrating because he sometimes does run into a cul-de-sac. But I think the stats speak for themselves. Simon Harvey says, I think Anthony has been excellent all season. Think he's been our main threat, and most things go through him. Him and Edwards on the wings is a dream come true. That's a fact, mate. Most things do go through him over the course of the season. I think we've just proven that with the stats. However, Clark Blue 1982, he's another one. He says, I'm not a fan of Anthony, but he actually looked like he put a shift in yesterday, and Loren was everywhere doing the dirty work, making sure nothing got through to the defence. Duncan Forrester says, Anthony had a cracking game. Most of our outlet balls were down the left, contributed so much in defensive midfield, far more than Edwards yesterday. And Chris has gone on to say, got you through the AirPods while writing a turgid Rwanda versus Nigeria preview. Bloody hell, mate. When you said you were working, I didn't realise you had I thought you were maybe going Hillsborough or something, to be fair. But anyway, we'll move on. I'm going to bring this comment back up from Clarets Blue 1882 because, again, that means I can branch nicely into a Josh Loren chat. I'll start off this time because I have sometimes sat there on these shows or the fan reactions and not criticised him. I feel like with Josh Loren on the ball, I feel like he could offer a bit more. He's not great in terms of technical ability on the ball, but that's not his game. That really isn't his game. Yesterday, he was absolutely superb. And I do feel, even though I have criticised him sometimes by saying his passes need to be better or he needs to be better on the ball in terms of technical ability, the midfield always, in my opinion, looks so much more balanced when it's the three Joshes, when it's Brownhill, Loren and Cullen. I always feel like that, in my opinion, should be the three in the middle. I know it's harsh on Handball because he's probably better in terms of technical ability than Josh Loren, but I always feel like when you stick Handball in there, you stick him in like the 8 role, and Brownhill also then plays in kind of like an 8 role, and they rotate the going forward and things like that. Whereas I just feel like if you just let Loren and Cullen sit ahead of the back line and let Josh Brownhill do his thing. Like, I don't think we scored that goal yesterday. If the first goal yesterday, if that midfield isn't the way it is, Josh Brownhill just arriving late in the box. Another tap in for Josh, to be fair, but he's always there doing that, making them runs when he's in that position, and that's why I like Josh Loren. I know. Like I said, I have sometimes been a little bit critical of him, but I do feel like we are better with him in that midfield. And yesterday, he covered absolutely every single blade of grass. He was absolutely superb yesterday with Josh Loren. He was absolutely fantastic. Gary, I'll come to you first on this one then. What are your thoughts on Josh Loren's performance, please, yesterday, mate?
Yeah, yesterday, solid performance. Won pretty much every duel he got in. And I thought he did quite well on the ball, to be fair. I know it's not his main attribute, but he did do quite well. What I would be interested to see would be... because what happens is when Handball plays, he goes in the 10 and then Brownhill goes in the 8. I would much prefer to see Handball in the 8 and then Brownhill in the 10. It just doesn't make sense to me why our best scorer, probably best player arguably, then change his position every week depending on who's going in. If you've got, like, for example, you just mentioned Finn Azaz, he never plays in the 8 because he's the best player for Middlesbrough. He always plays in the 10 and he always gives a solid performance. So I don't see why we move Brownhill. They should just try Handball in the 8, Brownhill in the 10, and then we can see what that's like. But if I had to choose, I would probably say Josh Loren should start most games, but I also think as well he might get found out if we go up in the Premier League because different kettle of fish, completely different. There's like £100 million midfielders, isn't there, compared to him being 500k. So we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when it comes to it. But yesterday was phenomenal, to be fair. So.
Yeah, I do agree. John Faulkner says, what are you doing on at this time? How much have I missed? You missed 24 minutes, John. Come on, get with it. As I've said to people already, if you don't follow us on Facebook or Twitter, make sure you do. I will always put something on there letting everybody know that the time has moved. Unfortunately, John, I'm working later. Any more questions about why I'm on at this time will be ignored. I need to stop breaking off and answering them questions, to be fair. I'll come to you in a minute, Andrew, but let's just get the comments. Reece James says, Josh cubed as a unit is just an excellent midfield setup. It's harsh for Handball to miss out, but that's the way it is. I think he means. Oliver Briggs says, Brownhill disappears when Handball is on the pitch. I agree, because as Gary just mentioned, then Handball is the furthest forward. It's not necessarily a traditional 10. I feel like it's a bit more fluid. Like sometimes you'll see Brownhill go forward, sometimes you'll see Handball go forward. But it is made. I have a guy who's not sent them there for today, but he normally sends me like what's it called? So like a pass map and average position map. He's not sent them me today, but I remember it against West Brom when Brownhill and Handball played. Handball was the furthest forward overall in terms of when they're in possession. So I think that's why he goes missing, and I completely agree. I feel like the three that we had yesterday should be the three going forward. Simon Harvey says, I've not been a fan of Loren, excuse me, and love Handball, but after yesterday, I completely understand and now think you need the three Joshes in the middle. Completely agree. Brownhill, Steve staying the 10, says Stephen L. John Robertson says, is it fair to say that when it comes to dragging players, blocking players, finding space, freeing up others, he's one of the best players in the league without the ball? I agree with that, mate. I think exactly that. I seem to remember at the start of the season calling out for him to be in the side because he dragged us up the pitch. I always felt like he would get the ball and just drag us up that pitch. And yeah, I do feel like that's probably a good point, that, to be fair, mate, that he is probably one of, if not the best in the league without the ball. I did see Kane from Burnley Way yesterday say he was one of the best midfielders in the league. I think that's a bit much. He's not even one of the best midfielders at Burnley, but I think that's a bit much. But without the ball, I think that's a good point, to be fair. Duncan says, undisputed, Cullen Brownell and the whole team look better when Loren is playing. Easily man of the match yesterday. Duncan, you've gone too early with the man of the matches, mate. You've gone too early. We do the man of the matches at the end of the show. So please, mate, when I ask your man of the matches later, please remember to put your comments in. Andy Benny says, I think Loren runs smarter than Hannibal, but Hannibal will get better. Phil says, Loren's best game in months. I don't get Hannibal, frustrates me. The three Joshes, best for the team. Daniel Omaro says, Josh Loren is brilliant against weaker teams yesterday. He really showed his ability to get the ball and move forward rather than pass it sideways or backwards. Oliver says, I don't think Hannibal will make a good out-and-out 8. He doesn't have the physicality. I said I won't answer another one. But Clarets Blue 1882 replying to John, he says, thanks for giving Joy's end of stream link. If you've missed anything, don't worry, mate. Phil gave me one earlier as well. So we have that one when somebody starts giving me a bit of grief later and says, nobody said that. So, yeah, I don't know about that. Sorry, my Formanthal started kicking me off mid-comment. You get the gist. Yeah, no worries, Reese. I respect that, mate. I understand that as well. Andrew, sorry, mate. A lot of comments in on the Josh Loren thing. A lot of people are quite passionate about it and thoughtful about it. It's good to see a lot of people with the comments, though, but keep them coming in. But your thoughts on Josh Loren and his performance yesterday, please, mate?
Yeah, I think he did very well. Easily his best performance in a Burnley shirt. I think I'm still slow to the party on not, at the start of the season, we all loved him and were desperate for him to get in the team. As the season's gone on, we've sort of started to see that he's not as perfect as he seemed, but I'm still not quite there. Like I still really rate him and still think, obviously, when he's in the team, he allows for Brownhill to get further forward, like you two have said, and that Brownhill's our top goal scorer. So with Loren being in the team, it sort of shows that it's working and we're doing better. But like Daniel said in his comment before yesterday, like he just showed how good he is to get himself on the ball and then get it forward rather than passing it backwards or sideways. And that's what we want from the midfield. Like that's the thing that's been frustrating this season. We'll get the ball into the midfield and then knock it backwards or sideways. So yeah, I thought he did really well. And we can have the argument of Hannibal or Loren, till the cows come home. But I think you sort of see why Josh Loren was the £500,000 player from Stoke.
Yeah,
when he's playing, there's obviously a really good player there, and he does do the dirty work and get the ball back and make those runs. Like we've seen him quite a bit now in the last few games, making his starting runs into the box. But yeah, like you can see, he's not a perfect player, and that's why we got him for so cheap. But I still think the three Joshes has to be our midfield.
Yeah, while I agree, I understand what you're saying about how we got him so cheap. I also think at the same time it's probably the bargain of the summer to getting Josh Loren for 500k. That's ridiculous. Like, some houses these days, even in Burnley, are over 500k. Not many, admittedly, but you couldn't even get an house in some areas of Burnley these days for 500k, and we got Josh Loren for 500k. I know which I'd rather have, Josh Loren or a house. Josh Loren. But just quickly, my very, 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 very pathetic and quick, not claim to fame, but I just want to quickly point out that in case nobody saw it, Josh Loren actually responded to Turfcast yesterday. So Josh, if you're watching the show, mate, he's definitely not. But if you're watching the show, we all loved you yesterday. We all thought you played absolutely fantastic. But yeah, we're great to see Josh Loren respond to Turfcast. Yeah, it's been a while since one of the players has interacted with me, ever since the club told them to stop doing it. But I always appreciate it when some of them show the love. What's he called now? I forgot a player that left. Used to watch every week, but yeah, genuine. We'll move on. I want to mention before I get in trouble. I want to mention another player who was scapegoated quite a lot in the season. And to be fair, I kind of understood it sometimes. There were some games where he did look out of place. and then he was dropped, but due to an injury, he was brought back into the side. And I think in his last two, he has been excellent. I'm of course talking about Lucas Pires. I thought he was absolutely fantastic against West Brom. I thought he was okay yesterday, decent yesterday. But I feel like he has been a bit of a scapegoat, and I feel like a lot of people, not necessarily over apology, but that's a little bit extreme. But I think the last couple of games, he's started slowly, admittedly, proving people wrong. Gary, I think you were you quite critical on Pires? I can't remember. I think you were on Twitter and in the comments before you started coming on the show. So I'll come to you first on Pires. So I've just seen your comment, Clarets 1882. They're not, because that's where I live. I wish they were, mate. But Gary, we'll come to you first, mate. On Lucas Pires. It was absolutely fantastic against West Brom. I don't know if it were you that answered me on Twitter. I don't think it were you, to be fair, but somebody answered me on Twitter saying, bloody hell, if that's excellent, that shows how low his bar is. I feel like some people are just not seeing it with an agenda, because that's harsh, but going into it. I think I said this on my fan reaction, didn't I? Going into it with a preconception because he was so poor early in the season. I think when you look at it on the last two games, he's been good, and he's been completely fine, and he's been a very good fullback for us. What are your thoughts on him, please, mate?
Yeah, I would have to agree. Last two games been pretty solid, to be fair. Defensively, he's probably his main issue, because attacking he's all right. He's not the best. He's not like Sirkin or anything, but defensively, his main issue where people run off him, or he's not strong enough, or he's a bit weak or whatever. But the last two games, he's been quite good, to be fair. So it might be one of them instances where he's just adjusting to the league, because you got to think he's Brazilian, so he might not even speak English very well. He'll be speaking Portuguese. He's come from Cadiz, so he has to learn Spanish, and now he's come to a new league, new players, new home. It might be a bit of that, where now he's settled in. He's now able to concentrate on his football a little bit more. I might be reading too much into it, but could be something to do with that. If you have a choice between him and Humphries, though, obviously I would be choosing Humphries, but he's not a bad replacement, I would have to say. Probably
would agree with that. But also at the same time, I feel like, he has been unnecessarily scapegoated.
Mm-hmm.
Unnecessary. There were some games where he was genuinely awful, if I'm being honest. But the last two games, I think he has done very well, and he deserves his dues. Like let the praise be as loud as the disrespect. Like I think what I always try and do on here is be quite balanced. And if I've slagged the player off, like Loren, like I have in the past, if they then go on and start playing well, I think it's only fair to say, yeah, you are playing well now, and fair play. So I appreciate that, Gary. Well done, mate. Simon Harvey says, Pires has been really good since he's come in for Bash, but he's still not the best at defending, but I love him going forward. John says, Bash is better, but he has been okay, no disasters. Reece James says, hold my hands up. Pires has been a lot better recently, finally showing some quality that we hoped for, feeling much calmer having him for them running. To be fair, I don't think Humphries is a million miles away now. I think he'll only be about 4 weeks away at most. John Robertson says 2 assists for Pires in game 1 at Luton. We haven't really adopted the same style over the top and round the sides. Since probs due to player changes, he's adapting to a very different system. Well, Clarets 1982 says Pires is a mixed bag. He might have had a kick up the backside because Bash is on the sidelines now, and did run his socks off on the overlaps. I think that's what he offers better than Bash. The overlaps. I'm not saying that Bash doesn't do it, because he did it quite well at Sheffield United, I think I remember rightly, when he got the assist for the Brownhill goal. But I agree with what people are saying. I would rather have Humphries in there. I mean, again, it's probably a horses for courses kind of player. When we're playing Sheffield United, get Humphries in there if he's back. But when we're playing, Swansea, for example, then Pires is probably a better person in that scenario. Andrew, your thoughts on Pires, please, mate?
Yeah, like I said, I like him. I think last two games he's done really, really well. Like John said, start of the season he looked to be a real player, and then he just sort of fell off it. And I think again it's difficult because I don't like comparing players, but you've got Humphries, who England under-21 international we've got on loan from Chelsea, and Pires is some lad we've got from a lower team. So again, it's like one of them where, same as Laurent and Hannibal, where you've got two really good players, but it's where they've come from. And I think you've got to give him credit. He has been doing better recently. And I agree with John with the overlaps. That's something that he brings that Humphreys doesn't as much. But yeah, I think he's done really well and can't knock him.
Yeah, fair enough. Chris, I've seen your comment. I'm not going to read it out, mate, because we got some stick for that, didn't we, last time? But I think that's harsh, to be fair. But Chris Hyam, I will read your comment out, though. Looked better with Anthony moving over to the left. Coley or Sean Foster don't link up as well with the fullback. I realised then when I said I won't read your comment out, Chris, it looked pretty bad because I had another Chris on screen. I wasn't referring to your comment, Chris, obviously, because I read that one out and it was on screen. But yeah, I feel like he has been scapegoated recently, and I feel like, it's okay to call a spade when he's shit, say he's shit, but when he starts playing well, don't just then double down, because then you look silly. I think, in my opinion, we've got to give him his dues. I think he's done well his last few games, to be fair. Right, moving on. We've discussed all the individuals. We'll get into the man of the match later and we'll come back to that. However, there wasn't many controversial incidents in the match yesterday, but if you're a Swansea fan, you might disagree with that, because there was, of course, the handball, which I saw a few Swansea fans saying that they should have had. I'll be honest. I think it's very similar to the one at West Brom on Tuesday. And this is a still on your screen now. Apologies if you're listening on the podcast, but obviously we are live stream and YouTube video first, podcast second. We recommend you go and watch us live on YouTube or the video afterwards. But on screen now is an image of the player about to sort of like hit it. Look at where CJ is there. Look at where his arm is there. Right, it's down by his side. Yes, it's a little bit behind him. And this is what I saw even some Burnley fans saying in a WhatsApp group that I'm in yesterday, saying his arm is behind his back. It's away from his body, and therefore it's a penalty. But if you look at that, that's where his hand is originally. If you look at it there, then I'll just bring the next one in. When it actually hits his arm, he's actually moved his arm. So he's trying to move it behind his back. He's trying to get his arm out of the way. His arm is, yes, away from his body slightly. But what's he supposed to do there, in my opinion? I don't think it's a penalty, and I feel like I'm going full circle with that. I feel like, I'm being balanced with that. I know some people will always say, oh, he's a Burnley fan, he's supposed to say that. I said the same against West Brom last week, and in my opinion, it's very similar. I know some people might disagree and say his arm's away from his body, but it's very, very similar to the West Brom one, in my opinion. I don't see how, if you're not going to give that West Brom one, or if you were one of the Burnley fans shouting for the West Brom one to be a penalty, for you to then turn around and say this one isn't. They're very, very similar in my opinion, and I don't see how it is a penalty. However, I will always caveat that with, if that was in the Premier League, it's probably given, but that doesn't mean it's correct, because for some reason the Premier League always seem to get the handball rule different every year. They seem to tweak it every year as well, and VAR will always intervene and things like that. But for me, I don't think it's a penalty, and I don't think the one against West Brom was a penalty either. John Robertson says neither were pens for me. Clarets 1882 says not a handball. Goes on to say ball hits him rather than him moving towards the ball. Stephen L says it's kicked 2 yards away from him. Happened right in front of us yesterday. Stonewall, no pen. Josh Hyatt says, what do you want him to do with his arms there? Not a penalty. I agree, mate. I'm not saying it is. Daniel Ormerod says it always looks worse on a still frame. Watching it in real time, it wasn't intentional. Yeah, I agree with that, mate. Still frames always look worse, but unfortunately, due to copyright issues, obviously that's all I can show. Duncan Forrester says, never even remotely handball. We were right behind it. Stephen L says, momentum when moving makes arms come out slightly. It would have been hard. Yeah, I agree with that. Obviously, his arm's in a natural position still. Yes, his arm may be slightly away from his body, but it's still in a natural position because he's ran into that position and started slowing down. So, I don't know what force it is because I'm not a fucking scientist, but, forces would mean that your arms go behind your body slightly. Lee Greenwood says, I don't think VAR would even give that just because of the position of his arms. Maybe, mate. I don't know. I can never keep up with VAR these days. It seems to be different every fucking week. Simon Woodhouse says, never a pen. So we do have, quite everybody saying the same thing. Universal opinion. Andrew, I'll come to you first on this one. Your thoughts on it, please, mate?
Yeah, I completely agree. Common sense has to prevail. And yeah, it does hit his hand. Like, there's no argument there. No one's arguing that. But like I say, it's very similar to the one against West Brom. Now, I was screaming for that at the time. I was dead certain it had hit his hand and it was a blatant penalty. Having watched it back, it would have been very, very harsh to have given the penalty. And I feel like it's the same here. Like, watching it live, I'd probably have been like, yeah, that's definitely a penalty. Having seen it back, it'd have been very harsh. Like I say, common sense has to prevail. And when you're moving, your hands, your arms are going to move. It's in a natural position for me. It'd be very harsh. But I agree with you. That would be given in the Premier League because they don't know the rules on handball, and if it hits your arm, no matter where it is, it's a penalty. So, yeah, would have been very harsh, but it's not a penalty for me.
Yeah, fair enough. John Faulkner says, given by VAR all day. Gary, your thoughts on it, please, mate?
Well, to touch on the VAR thing first. I think if, let's just say we're in the Premier League and the ref gives it, VAR don't overturn it. But then if the ref doesn't give it, VAR wouldn't overturn it either. That's where the Premier League's a bit of a mess with handballs. But on this one, I would say not a handball. I think everybody expects the players to be like Josh Loren in this still image. Can you see where he's got his hands behind his back? To always be like that. But we're forgetting that Egan Riley would have moved from a more central position around the middle of the 6-yard box to get in that position to block it. So obviously, if he's moving, you need balance with your arms. So that's why it's there. And then the rules, as it says, what natural arm position, and I think that is, so therefore not a penalty. And then if you're giving that, then we would have won the West Brom game because we would have got a penalty. So it would have been 2-2-1 wins. So if anything, we've lost out due to these rules. But not a pen for me. Not a pen.
Yep, fair enough, mate. I did ask the question over on Twitter. I refuse to call it X. It's absolutely fucking stupid name. I'll forever call it Twitter. And just to give some balance, because everybody here has said no penalty. Everybody in the comments has said no penalty. And I said, did Burnley get away with one here? Some people do actually believe it was a penalty. So you got Jake Byron, who says, yes, we'd all be mourning if it wasn't given for us. Brad Talbot says his arm hasn't moved towards the ball and it's a close distance. If you give this and you're giving a few penalties every single game. Muad says yes, it's a clear penalty. Parker's Carde says yes, definite pen. Only factor was distance and speed the ball had travelled. Arm was in a natural position but away from his body. After all the shockers this year, it's good to see one go our way. John says could have been given VAR, would have awarded a penalty. Richard Collins says never a pen, similar to the one in the last minute versus West Brom. Where's he meant to put his hand? Shot at speed from a close distance, hand doesn't move towards the ball, not really ticking any of the penalties flags. And Bobby Michael says, who cares? Well, F you too, Bobby. You must be an absolute life and soul of the party there, mate. But he does follow us, by the way, Bob. So if you don't like the tweets, Bob, just unfollow. I won't go into what's said on Facebook because similar sort of comments to what Bob said. Who cares? It's 3 points. That's all that matters. Right, so we've done the handball. I want to talk about the running and sort of like whether or not you guys think that we will finish in the top 2. And I'm going to come to Gary first, but don't wait. Not just yet, Gary, just because of the response you put on Twitter yesterday. But here are the Championship top 3 remaining fixtures. Discount the first 2 lines there, please. Obviously, apart from Sheffield United. This was done by the BBC about 2 weeks ago, and I am too lazy to create one myself. So I've just stolen the one that they did 2 weeks ago, obviously. But the top 2 lines have all been done except Sheffield United's game today, which is, of course, against Sheffield Wednesday. Hi-ho, Sheffield Wednesday, up the Owls and all that. So our remaining fixtures. So the next 2, after we come back from international break, Bristol City at home, Coventry City away. Tough. Sheffield United also have Coventry City, so that's a tough one. But they also have Oxford away from home, which, is they should win it. Of course they should. We didn't win there, though. And they have got better recently under Rowett. So, it's not a walk in the park. And however, speaking of walks in the park, Leeds United's next 2 fixtures are Swansea City and Luton Town. So looking at them fixtures, obviously we've got Bristol, Coventry, Derby, Norwich, Watford, Sheffield United, QPR and Millwall. What I like about our fixtures are the last 2. Having said that, Sheffield United's last 2 do look pretty comfortable as well. Leeds United have got a tough a tough second to last game, but the away game it's pretty easy. I think all three of us win on the final day. Looking at that, I agree with what people are saying. We have the toughest run. We're Bristol City chasing playoffs, Coventry chasing playoffs, and doing very well at the minute. As somebody just put in the comments earlier, obviously I didn't read it out because we weren't talking about that. But the Ricoh Arena does look bouncing at the minute. And to be fair to Coventry, for all the banter and back and forth we had a couple of seasons ago with them, the Ricoh does look good. I have just got tickets for that game, by the way, 120 quid for 4 people. Absolute scandalous, but I won't go into that. And then obviously Norwich, who have dropped off a bit of a cliff recently, but they are still in the playoff debate, kind of. And obviously Sheffield United is a tough one. So there's some tough games there. Looking at them three run-ins, I do feel like we have the worst of the three. Garrett, I'll come to you first. I know your answer, but if you could just give your answer and your reasonings, please, for the listeners and the viewers. Do you think we get top 2? Yes or no?
No, purely because of the running. I mean, if you're looking at the games now, Bristol City at home, I think we would win that, but it's not an easy game. Coventry, that's away, horrible, horrible game to go to, horrible stadium. Horrible form that they're in. Even Derby away is not the best game. I'm sure somebody will say that they've lost 15 in a row at home or something, but
no, I think they've just won 3 in a row, haven't they? They beat Blackburn, they beat Blackburn, then they beat somebody else, and they beat Plymouth yesterday. So they're hitting form now. Eustace has starting to get his ethos on the team, and it's starting to work. So I agree, it is a tough one that.
Yeah, and then you got Norwich. Again, that's a difficult game. Even though they're not as good defensively, they've
dropped off a cliff a bit recently. Therefore,
well, Josh Sargent and Borja Signs are ridiculously good.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. Watford, they're a bit hit and miss, to be honest. I think their season will be over at that stage, to be honest. But if they're in their chance of the playoffs, then it could be a difficult game. Sheffield United speaks for itself. And then the last two, on reflection, this will depend where they are in the season, because QPR and Millwall, they might both be on the beach at this stage. Whereas if you look at Leeds United's ones, they would play Bristol, who could potentially be in a playoff race, and then Plymouth are in a relegation dogfight. So if you're looking at teams that have got stuff to play for in those last 2 games, if QPR and Millwall don't have anything to play for, you would imagine they're easier to play against compared to what Leeds have got. And that's why I don't think we'll get it, because the games are just too difficult. The home games are hard, and then also you've got the factor of fatigue. When you're playing too many games that are so difficult right next to each other, that could affect your players. You can't rest as many players, and then all the away games, by maybe I'm trying to think, maybe Derby, but all the away games are just horrible games to go to, horrible grounds, horrible teams. So that's why I've put no. Personally, which I don't want to say, but I'm just trying to manage expectations in a guess.
Yeah, fair enough. I take your point about Bristol City on the second last game of the season for Leeds, hence why I said it was difficult myself, but I feel like Plymouth will be gone by then. They've had a few bad defeats recently. I know they won on Tuesday away at Pompey, but losing to Derby yesterday at home, that could have been the one where they kicked on, but I think they'll be gone by then. Clarets Blue 1882 says, all up for grabs. We need to win everything and hope the pressure gets to others. Yeah, completely agree with that, mate. Obviously, it's starting today, hopefully, Sheffield United lose. Chris Wilson says, there was a tweet the other day from a stats account that said we had the second toughest running of everyone in the league based off opponents' points per game average. It don't look great, does it? The running doesn't look great. But again, I will caveat that, and I love that word, don't I? Caveat. But I will caveat that by saying I feel like we do well in them sort of games, against the tougher opposition. I feel like we'll go to Coventry and we'll get a point. Might not be enough in the running, but we tend to go to these stadiums and do well. Look, obviously we beat Leeds at Leeds. We beat Sheffield United at Sheffield United. We can do it at Coventry. There's nothing to say that we will definitely get beat. I feel like some of these games can sometimes be a benefit to us, especially when teams are chasing something like your Bristol Cities, like your Coventries. They're going to come at us. They're going to open up. We might be able to then counteract that and counter-attack and score a couple of goals. Who knows? We have struggled this season when teams just get in 2 banks of 4 and say, break us down, and we can't do it. And I don't see many teams doing that now. Now we're getting into even your derbies, because they need to start winning games more. They've won a couple, admittedly, but they need to keep that momentum going. So, Yeah, that's my view on it. I do agree it's difficult. It's weird because yesterday I felt like we get top two, but now I'm kind of like, it's probably because I've looked at the running and I agree it's difficult, and I'm kind of like sort of like managing expectations a little bit. But I think a lot of it, if Sheffield United go to Hillsborough today and they win again, I'll probably be thinking that these bastards aren't just going to drop points, are they? Because they seem to win. Every time we win, they win. They always seem to just win. And I'm just thinking like we need to get above these soon. And if we're not above them, going into the international break, then it's going to be tough to get above them. It's going to be tough. But for now, I think we just about edge it. Because I think we can do well in these games. Lee Greenwood says we definitely have the toughest running. If we finish top two, we've done well. Kat says Coventry could be key as they also play Sheffield United and they are playing well lately. Stephen L says will be tough. Most are playing for something. Will be a hard game for them. Also, John says tough running. Wouldn't like to say it's who holds their nerve. Leeds might capitulate. They are capable of that. Can't call it. They are, and I still think Leeds win the league. I know it's fun watching them draw at QPR and lose at Portsmouth and stuff, but they've got the best squad, and I still think that they win the league. And I just think it's between us and Sheffield United, honestly, I do. Lee also goes on and says, QPR the only team to win at the Turf in that fantastic season. We did that on purpose, mate. I'm adamant of that. John Faulkner says, don't like Millwall last game. I think they'll be on beach, as Gary said earlier. Joe K says, of course we do. Effing come on, lads, positive. Hey, mate, I think we do. It's just Gary. We'll ask Andrew his opinion in a minute. Oliver says, there was a point in the season when we had easy 5-6 games compared to the other two. We drew 3. Yeah, good point. Claret and Blue 1882 says, this is where all them 0-0 results come back to bite us in the arse. I think we need 6 wins, says Simon. Stephen L says, Luton and Borough away for Leeds won't be easy. Borough won't. Luton will. Luton are awful, mate. Danny B says, I think we play Sheffield United. Whoever wins that game will go up. I tend to agree, but I'm hoping we're like 5 points above them by then. Can I see that being the case? No, but I think it will all hinge on that. I genuinely do it. And if it does all hinge on that, I actually back us. If it comes to that game and they're like 2 points ahead of us, and obviously if we win, we go above them, I back us to do it. I back us to win that match, and then I back us not to drop any more points in the last 2 games of the season at that point. And CJ Lottie says, a month or 2 ago, it looked like we had the easiest running of all 3 games. Now some of those teams have put good runs together. Just shows the twists and turns in this league. Yeah, completely agree, CJ. It's mad because you always look at it and you always think, oh, well, they'll win that. Where are they going to drop points? The next thing you know, Leeds have lost at Portsmouth, and you're thinking, Jesus Christ, are Leeds going to fall apart again? But, yeah, there's going to be a lot of twists and turns yet. Andrew, your thoughts on the... I didn't mean to do that. Your thoughts on Burnley's running, please, mate, and do you think we will get top 2?
I said it a few weeks ago. I've been banging the drum since Christmas, I think, to be honest, and I think I'm probably one of the only ones still. I still think we can win it. I still think the league's there. It's still there to be won. In the last week, I know that you say about Leeds not falling apart like they usually do, but in the last week we've seen them lose to Portsmouth and draw 2-2 with, was it Millwall yesterday, QPR? Whoever QPR, yeah.
Beat Millwall on Tuesday and then drew with QPR. Yeah. 2-0 down, by the way. QPR, thanks for that.
So you know, Leeds aren't as good as everyone thinks. Like, they're not as fantastic as everyone thinks, and I still think that they will continue to fall apart. I think the game we've got against Sheffield United is obviously massive, but you know, everyone was saying that they've got easier fixtures, but if you look at it over the course of the season, we've had moments where we thought we've had easier fixtures and we've got 0-0 draws rather than battering them. You know, we have to play everyone twice. It's just now we've got to this point where they look like they've got the favourable fixtures. But like I say, that game against Sheffield United is absolutely massive. And everyone's still got something to play for. And that's, you know, that's what it's going to come down to. But yeah, I still think we can win the league. I'm still think we can win it.
Daniel Ormerod says, Andrew is onto something with Leeds. They aren't looking as good as they did earlier on in the season. What I will say about Leeds is I watched that game yesterday before setting off to work, so I did miss the last 15, 20 minutes, to be fair. But they looked poor in the first half and decent in the second from what I saw. And a big part of that was Aronson. I don't know why he starts Aronson, but he started Aronson. And as soon as he took it, he got taken off. They looked better. And I think maybe Farke's learnt his lesson there. I hope he hasn't, obviously. Yeah, we'll see. I just think they're two good leads. I still think they win the league. Looking at their fixtures, I think they get 6 points in the next two. And then I don't think we do looking at our running. But yeah, if we carry on winning, then I think we will win the league. I don't know. Leeds worry me, and I do think they are good. But I agree, they don't look as good as they did earlier in the season. But that's because they were, stuffing everyone. And recently, they've drawn two and lost one. But yeah, fingers crossed. Lee Greenwood says the way we've been going, it looks like third. If we get it together for the running, we can get above both of them. Danny B says, come on, Leeds have a song about bottling it. Funny to see them finishing third. Genuinely, mate, yesterday, right, when they were 2-0 down. I won't say the A word because I've got one right here, but, the smart speaker. I was like, A word, play Joy Division. And obviously, dancing around my front room, loving it. So fully aware of the song, mate, but obviously then they came and... and they came in and equalised. MB Deco Samate says, come on, Clarets, we're going for the trophy. Now all the best, lads. Support from the Gambia. Thank you for the support there, mate. That's Australia and Gambia we've had today. So international turf cast. Ginger Raleigh says, we have 9 cup finals. Leeds are feeling the pressure. They definitely are. That Sheffield games ends 0-0, says Oliver. Believe it. If we're above them at that point, mate, I will rip your hand off. I do not care if we stink the gaff out. If we finish in the top 2 after that match, that's all I care about. Stephen L says, if the teams we play have something to play for, it might be they come out and play, which will suit us. Intriguing. That's exactly what I said, mate. So I completely agree with that. And Clarets Blue 1882 says, if we finish third, I don't fancy our chances of going up. While I kind of agree, Clarets Blue 1882 is your name on here. Look at the points difference. Look at the points difference between the top 3 and everybody else. So, can you see it very well on there? I'll just quickly go on it. So,
Yeah.
we're on 78. Then Sheffield United 1 point behind us on 77. Then Sunderland, who I believe are the best team I've seen in person this season, are all the way back on 69. That's 9 points less than Burnley. Coventry are 10 points behind them. Yes, Coventry have started doing well recently, but they've shown they are still beatable, losing at Derby. If they go to Pride Park and lose, if we get them in the playoffs, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we should be able, over the course of 2 legs, in my opinion, be able to beat everybody else in that top 6, apart from Sunderland are the team that worries me the most, but they have recently fallen off a cliff. While I agree, the playoffs are a lottery and anything can happen and all that sort of stuff, I get it. And obviously I want to finish in the top 2. But if we get in the playoffs, I won't for 1 second be like, that's it, done. I'll be like, I think we can do it, but it's always a lottery. It's always a lottery. To be fair, he does go on to say playoff is a roll of the dice and nothing to do with point. It isn't anything to do with point, but points over the course of the season show who's the better side. And I think them points show that we are better than everybody else in that playoff picture, in my opinion. Apart from maybe Sunderland when they have Lefebvre back. I just feel like since Lefebvre's injured, that they're falling off a cliff. Gary, you sound like you want to say something, mate?
Well, I'm going to say a lot of it as well is to do with your mentality. So if you think how many how many teams have got players who've been through a playoff before, probably not Burnley. Who's got the most? Burnley. Who's got the most that have won the league? Burnley. Like Connor Roberts, players that have been there, done that. Even Ashley Barnes will be able to, he won't be playing much, but he'll be able to incite some wisdom on these young players. So that's where I think Sunderland might fall short because they've got by far the youngest team.
Yeah.
Like Chris Rigg, who's only 17, 18 or whatever. Imagine the pressure of a playoff final or a playoff second leg or whatever. It's completely different in it, and I think that's what can mess people over.
Go on, Andrew.
Just following on from that, from Gary, you've got saying about the players who've won promotion. Scott Parker's got 100% record out this league as well.
Yeah,
he knows what he's doing. He's already won the playoffs, so he'll know what to do to get us there and get us in the playoff final and get us up. But we don't need to worry about that. We've still got the title.
Yeah, fair enough. One thing I did promise our Twitter users was I put a poll out yesterday, which is what I was talking about earlier about the whether or not you think we will go up. And I said that Gary responded on there, sort of like saying he doesn't think we'll go up. But I did promise that some of the Twitter users I would read out their responses. So I put a poll up on Twitter yesterday saying, do you think Burnley will get top 2? Give your reasoning below and we will read some responses out on the pod/stream tomorrow. I thought some other fans of other clubs welcome. So a resounding 77.5% thought Burnley will get the top 2, and just 22.5% thought we wouldn't. But Phil, who is in the chat actually, says, toss of a coin for me. Sadly, too many draws may cost us, but we do have a right chance. Nathan McLean says Parker will do this. He somehow has the way. BFC Will says, I think we'll get second, be confident all season that we'll have what it takes. I think the defensive is what will carry us over the line. And this is Gary's response. This is Gary on Twitter. Feel free to follow. Says, no, I don't mean to sound defeatist, but we have the hardest run of games. 5 out of 8 of our games against teams in the top 10, and the rest are against horrible teams away. Derby and QPR, for example. We have improved massively, but there's a big gap between the top 4 and the rest, but it's still hard. Parker's Cardigans says, might change my answer if we beat Bristol City and Cov, as they are very tough games to come straight back after the break. But went with no on the basis that we're technically third if Blades win tomorrow and feel we have the toughest running. Burnley 1-3-3 says depends on tomorrow's result. George says consistency should get us there. We probably won't go 2 goals down to anybody. Famous last words there, mate. Rupert Booth says if we beat Sheffield United, then yes. Brad says happily keep going under the radar as we are. The bookies have us as massive outsiders of the 3. The most consistent teams go up automatically. 8 more cup finals to go. Billy Ings says, I think Parker's experience in these situations will come to the fore over the next 8 games. Consistency has been and will be crucial. If we hadn't been spoiled by the company season, we would be more into this like 2013-14. Mike Coulshaw says, simply put, we have the momentum. Leeds are so famous for bottling it that they have a song dedicated to them, which is sung to them by every fan base that they face. United will stay strong. And I won't read them all out because there's quite a lot, but thank you to everybody for your responses to that. And if you don't follow us on Twitter, please feel free to head over there and then you can respond to some of them and we will read them out. Right. I need to set off to work in 25 minutes, so we need to be quick. Man of the match shouts, please get your man of the matches in the comments. As always, I will read every single one out, or at the very least, put them on the screen. But please let me know your man of the match in the comments, whether you're watching on Facebook, watching on Twitter. Not Twitter, we're not on Twitter. Facebook or YouTube. Get your comments coming in and we will read them out. Who shall I choose first? Andrew, I'm coming to you. Who's your man of the match, please, mate?
He roll over. He absolutely solid. Like I said before, best game in the Burnley shirt. Thought he was absolutely fantastic. So, yeah, Josh Loren.
Josh Loren is a vote for Andrew. Gary, who's your man of the match, please, mate?
Josh Loren, also best game of his season by far. Solid performance. Contributed well to the 2-0 win. I also like when he pushed that player over the goal line and then looked at him in disgust. Personal highlight. And then I would say Anthony close second, but Loren for me.
Yeah, fair enough. You know, I'm not even doing this to be controversial or anything. I knew it'd be tight between Loren and Anthony. And I always wanted to, you know, because I did put a tweet up about Josh Loren yesterday before he responded to my tweet with a laughing emoji. I weren't just kissing his ass. But I put a big tweet up yesterday on Twitter saying a word on Josh Loren. Thought he was excellent today, being critical sometimes of him this season, but at the same time, always felt the midfield feeds a lot more balance with him. In it, he does the leg work, allowing other players to concentrate on other things. Everywhere today, though, he was class. However, I'm going to give it Anthony. I think both goals are because of Anthony. Obviously, well, not because of Anthony. The first goal is because of Anthony. He obviously presses well, does incredibly well, forces a mistake, gets it to Fleming. Fleming puts it into Brownhill. Brownhill scores. And obviously, Anthony scored the second one. A bit of a bobble around in the box. But, you know, he's done well to put it in the roof of the net with where he is. So, for me, I'm going to go Jadon Anthony. But it is genuinely not a toss of a coin. It's a what's the saying? It's like a fag paper's width between them. Like they were so close. They were both fantastic. A word on Josh Brownhill as well. I thought he was class. Again, he's another one that some fans don't like. I've not seen Kieran in the chat today, probably because Brownhill scored yesterday. That's literally would be Kieran's mentality. But for me, Jadon Anthony, but it's looking like, obviously, I'm outvoted on the panel as both Andrew and Gary gave it to Josh Loren. Let's see what the comments are saying. John Robertson says Anthony. Cladbrook 1882 says share it between Loren and Anthony. Daniel Ormerod goes for Josh Loren. Ginger Alley, good to see you again, mate. He says Esteve, every single game, man of the match. Andy Benny says Brownell. Adrian Brown says Anthony. Steve is a tank, says Cladbrook 1882. Oliver says Anthony. Josh Loren says Marcia. Marcia McLaughlin. That's a great name, by the way. Kat says Brownhill. Thanks for another show, says Dan. I'm not going yet, mate. We'll be going in a minute, though. Didn't see the game, says new name. Fair enough. At least you're honest, pal. Russell Proctor says Anthony. Esteve says Simon Woodhouse. To be fair, you know, it's weird. I'm glad to see Esteve get some votes, even though none of us voted for him. But the reason why I don't vote for him anymore is you just expect it. You expect an 8 out of 10 from him every single week. So when he drops another 8 out of 10, like he did yesterday, it kind of goes unnoticed because he's absolutely superb. He is genuinely going to the very top. If somebody like, you know, Chelsea, for example, came in for him next season or whatever, or, you know, a Spurs, you know, one of the top teams that isn't doing great recently, coming for him, I would not be surprised. I would not be surprised at all. Phil Trix Wilcott gets his vote in late and he says Josh Loren. So again, a bit of a mix between Loren and Anthony, I think, in terms of the most votes, but obviously Brownhill getting a mention as well. And obviously Esteve, as I've mentioned. Right, lads, we will wrap it up there. Is there anything else that any of you two want to quickly mention before we do wrap it up?
No, other than the game times changing is pretty annoying, isn't it? You know, when they're always like 8 o'clock games, pretty much every game, that is annoying. Yeah,
the death of the 3 p.m. kickoff. And we're not going to start the debate because we'll be here all day. But as somebody who works in TV and somebody who is a football fan, get rid of the 3 p.m. blackout. I mean, I know some football fans want it to stay, but they're kind of killing the 3 p.m. kickoff because they won't get rid of the 3 p.m. blackout. Just get rid of it. Just get rid of the 3 p.m. blackout. Then all football fans who want to go to the games can go at 3 p.m. And then, you know, if they want to watch it at 3 p.m., you can. Oliver Briggs says, keep the Sunday morning FT shows. I play darts in the evening. We tend to get better numbers in the evening, to be honest with you, Oliver, like I said earlier. But next season, I do want to do something in the morning as well as something in the evening. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens, mate. It just depends when I'm working and when everyone's free off the time, if I'm going to be honest with you. But it will probably be going back to the evening just due to numbers, mate. But don't worry, because we are going to end the show there. And if you did join the stream late, like Phil Trix Wilcott, who says, morning, gents, I'm late again, and Ginger Raleigh, who put this up about 20 minutes ago, just saying afternoon, guys. So there are people that join the stream late. So if you did join the stream late, then don't worry. As soon as I press end stream, it stays on YouTube, it stays on Facebook for you to watch back at your leisure. And even though I'm setting off to work in around 20 minutes, once I get there, well, no, not once I get there. In my break at work, when I am allowed, I will be uploading the podcast as well. So, yeah, if you have joined late, don't worry. It will still be there for you to watch back. Or if you want to listen to it driving somewhere or maybe wait till the commute tomorrow morning, it will be on the podcast platforms as usual. Gary, that's your second show in a row now. How are you liking it, mate? I had a text off Chris, who is, missing, as I said. And I'll read it out for you. I'll just quickly get it up. My phone's not recognising my face. I don't really know why. I'll just quickly get the message up from Chris, who, like I said, is on pretty much every week. He says, this Gary is a good lad, knows his stuff. There you go.
Thanks.
High praise indeed.
If only that were from Neil Layfield, I would die happy. But thanks, Chris. Appreciate your comments.
R.I.P. to the Layfield. It is a shame to see him no longer with us. Obviously, that's a joke. No longer with the Turfcast team. It's looking like we won't see Layfield again pretty much anytime soon. I will give him a nudge next season. But yeah, Layfield, absolute legend. Sam will be back as well at some point. But it's good to see the Turfcast team growing. As I always said, I don't want Turfcast to be about me and my thoughts. If I wanted to do a YouTube channel like that, I just call it Joe Talks Football or whatever like that. But I like to get other people's opinions on it. So, Gary, the commenters seem to be loving you. Chris loves you. Andrew, thank you for coming on as well, by the way, mate. Always appreciate it. I could do a stream in the middle of Chernobyl at 4 a.m, and Andrew would be there. So, again, Andrew was at a wedding yesterday, and he was up at 9:30 a.m. to do this stream. Andrew, you're an absolute gent, mate. Thank you for coming on.
No worries, mate. It was hard watching the match last night when I'd had a few drinks, knowing score. But yeah, no, of course, always happy to do it, mate.
Excellent. Clarets Blue 1882 says 6 p.m. for the podcast, please. I like my lying in bed. Stephen L says, have a good day at work. Joy, no serious. Top job again. Cheers, buddy. And Oliver Briggs says, big up yourself, Gary. And yeah, big up yourself, Gary. Big up yourself, all the commenters. Big up yourself, all the viewers and listeners. But we will end it there. Thanks, everybody, for watching. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And we will see you next time.